As always, we'll start with the pledge, and Jody, can you please take the lead?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jody. Okay, before we begin our work session, we have one announcement. It concerns the possible extension to leave Nextera, the Nextera project open for an additional 2 weeks, and I just want Bob to discuss this possibility. Bob, can you please come up?
Sure, I'll come up to the podium.
Oh, we can hear you from there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yes, as per request from the supervisor as well as town board members, there was inquiry as to whether we could keep the record open. Counsel for Nextera has been reached out to, and I spoke with him this morning, asking him to consent to an enlargement of time or allowance that the record be kept open for at least 2 weeks. He's speaking with his clients. I should have an answer, I believe, by before this board breaks from the session today as to that answer. I want to also add that once the record's closed, as this board is probably aware, there's 62 days in which the town can make a decision. Within that 62-day period, we're also allowed to extend that by consent with the applicant. So there's also that ability down the road, should there be a need to further extend at that point. But again, for purposes of today's discussion and the purpose of extending the written comment period for an additional 2 weeks, I have good reason to believe it will be consented to. I just don't have that independently confirmed in writing at this time. And I hope to have so before the end of the day, maybe even earlier, as I said, by the end of the session.
Correct, and thank you, Bob. The decision is made by both attorneys, correct? Not just us.
Well, it's the town and the applicant,
Right.
but their counsel obviously are offering their advice and you know, input as to that application.
So
Great.
you're saying we can't reopen an application on our own motion? We need the consent of the applicant?
Well, it's not what I'm saying, because I didn't talk about reopening it. I'm talking about keeping the record open.
Okay.
The record, as the board is aware, on the 20th, when this matter was heard, there was, the public comment period was closed, but the written comment period was kept open, I believe, until tomorrow, close of business. So what's being asked is to keep that written comment period open for at least another 2 weeks.
And I'm really pleased about this. I did ask that night if we could keep it open longer, and I'm happy that we're all in agreement and moving forward with that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And where are we with the community benefit negotiations for the,
I have returned some of the comments from the town board to their counsel. He is looking at them, he's discussing them with his client.
And you'll get back to us
As soon as I have an answer from him, I will forward his response and comments back.
Perfect.
It's just difficult to ask the public to weigh in on a public hearing when we don't know what the community benefit is going to be. So hopefully during this extension time, we will have a better idea of that.
I think we'll be in a better understanding, yes.
Excellent. Thank you,
Okay.
Bob.
Yeah.
And we were also able to address the community benefit even though it was closed. Okay, because
Yeah.
we're only opening it up for comments from the public, and we can discuss it at a work session.
yeah? I
Yes,
mean,
Well,
so that was always available to us to discuss it with the community, correct?
yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, okay, good.
And if it is approved, we can approve it with conditions such as there's a contiguous trail that the public can use and other things like that.
Correct.
So,
And I think we will
Correct.
discuss that, you can discuss that, great, that's a good idea, Jody, at
Yep.
work session. That option was always available
Yeah.
to
Yep.
us to discuss this with the community, so moving forward, we have, our first person is BIDMA, proposing an outdoor dining grant program for downtown marketing initiative, Shoga, Verity, and Volta. Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning. So I'm here on behalf of the bid. Stephen wasn't able to join us today, but he and I have been working on a BIDMA outdoor dining grant program to give back to the downtown restaurants within the Business Improvement District. As you know, we had a successful Dine on 25 series of events, and we're looking to extend the season, extend their serving area, and kind of give them the chance to recoup that 50% capacity outdoors And with that said, a lot of the downtown dining, restaurants and breweries, distilleries do not have a grand outdoor space to do that. So, the cost for improving the space and adding things such as heaters, plastic, and to see the Preston House put some marine grade plastic up around their porch. A lot of the other restaurants are looking to do the same, tents, table rentals, chairs, purchases, things like that. So the BIDMA has a surplus in our general budget, currently at $34,511 is our surplus. A lot of that is left over from the events that we did not have this year. So we're looking to reallocate $30,000 of that into a outdoor dining grant program for the downtown eateries, to where we would allow them to make purchases of items on this list that will improve their outdoor dining capacity, such as tents, heaters, propane tanks, lighting, furniture, construction for improvements. So we are seeking to reallocate $30,000 from our surplus of $34,000. And that would go to a 50% grant match up to $2,000. So if the restaurants spend $4,000, they can submit for a $2,000 reimbursement from the bid. So we're asking the town to approve that. Our general fund balance currently is $99,130. Out of that, our cost left for 2020 is a grant match of $37,068. We still have our bonfire budget of $3,500, which will be incorporated into this grant if we do not follow through with the bonfire. Payroll is $10,500 and other expenses at $8,550. So we're asking the town to consider reallocating $30,000 from our surplus to this outdoor dining grant.
And those funds are not, you have those funds and they're collected from the business owners, and this is at no cost to the town, correct?
Correct.
I think it sounds great, I love the whole idea. Will there be street closures like you did in the summer a few times, or?
We, for the remainder of 2020, we don't currently have any street closure events in place. So this would be on premise, each restaurant. We are kind of leaving it up to the restaurants as to what they can do, just because each one kind of has a different area, a different way of business. So we're kind of passing it on to them and then reimbursing them rather than the bid typically handling it as an event series involving the town, Department of Transportation, and so on.
And what about parking? Because some of them may have to extend further out, will anything be done with the parking on the main street?
As far as parking, we don't anticipate it taking away from any parking. I think that the outdoor dining regulations would, they would be enclosing their space, in the regulations that are currently in place. So I think it would be more sidewalk dining.
Yeah, I just thought it might be easier actually if people are, outside eating, not to have someone pulling right up there.
Right, yeah, I think, taking away from the parking and expanding into, let's say, the shoulder, or closing the street in ways that some of the other towns have done, is really difficult for us to do downtown.
Yeah, ours are narrow.
They're
Our
narrow.
sidewalks are narrow, I know that.
Yeah, and it's also a major, throughway to, up north
Yeah,
and heading
it's a
east
state
as well,
road.
so, right.
Yeah.
So we're not looking to close down anything or, take over any parking as of now. And again, I think that we would leave that up to the individual restaurants to talk to the fire marshal in the town and obtain a permit. So we're really just seeking to reimburse them for any costs that they incur to make this change.
I mean, I think it's a great idea and a creative way to move the money around, so thank you.
So, my question is do you have an application?
You got the number?
We do not have an application as of yet, but I can certainly
Alright,
draft an
so-
application. As of now, we have just spoken to the downtown eateries, and then we presented it to our bid board to see, how they felt about it and get a vote on that. And we wanted to present it to the town board first to see if there is an opportunity to do this, and then we can certainly draw up an application.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure it's a fair and equitable process for all the business owners downtown that pay the taxes into the business improvement district. So that there would be a deadline for all the applications to come in to make sure that the money is proportionate and allocated fairly.
Okay. Actually, what we are seeking to do is, I mentioned the $30,000 that we want to reallocate. We're thinking $20,000 of that allocating for actual materials for the restaurants, and then the other 10,000 utilizing for marketing opportunities to not only, advertise the restaurants, but downtown as a whole, which would then, even though this is an outdoor dining grant, that marketing money, the dollars would go into bringing traffic into downtown as a whole. So our application, will draw up, and what we will include in that also is that if the funds are not fully allocated and reimbursed, that we would do a second round, sort of how we did with the fundraiser for Panacea Medical Center, where we would do a round and,
I think you're gonna probably get more people that are gonna be saying that you might get 10 businesses that say that they want the $2,000 each, and then you might get other businesses that say they want $500 each, so that's all I'm saying, is
Right.
that if you have a pot of 20,000, that it's, given out proportionately, that's all.
Okay.
So that nobody feels that they've been left out, or one person's been picked over another.
Right,
So,
Those discussions have already been had, Jody, with the bid, and they're doing a great job, they really are. I
Yeah.
appreciate what you guys are putting together for this.
Thank you.
It's gonna help the people out downtown, for sure.
Yeah,
We hope so.
for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, I'm on
And
board with it as well, because I know, being a businessman, that the winter months are gonna be the hardest for food and beverage going forward. We've already been behind the curve, to this point, and going into some really serious weather maybe, so, I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. And we're looking to, really help these businesses without adding cost. They're trying to recoup now for what they've lost in the spring. So that was our goal, is to help them, without incurring further costs for the materials that they need to expand their space.
great.
And I see from working with you that you really hit the ground running when you came in this job, so glad to have you on board.
It's been a pleasure working with the bid and with the town. Thank you for welcoming me.
And I think that if there were, tents and things of that nature that were put up in the sidewalks, as long as they were handicap accessible and ADA compliant, that the town board should consider waiving the tent permit fees and just having the tents put up, so that the fire marshal can just run through all of the tents in the same day, rather than sending him back and forth to businesses. I think that we could probably consider waiving the tent application fees for the downtown businesses.
Good, perfect.
They, speaking is kind of off the record here, but, at our outdoor dining grant meeting with the business owners, we did talk about the fire marshal and, the many locations that he then has to hit to do this. So we were hoping to maybe secure him for one day, or we could do a walk through town, so that way these restaurants know what their boundaries are beforehand, and then, make it easier for them to order materials, or to define their spaces, and then, of course, we would have them come back for inspections afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and if all the tents were put up, say, on November 15th, then the fire marshal can just run through all the tents and say, do this, and then go back on a second day, a couple days later, and make sure that everything's done so that they're all ready to open.
Exactly.
And, we were fortunate enough when, my office designed the outdoor dining program here with the fire marshals, that we extended it to the 31st, for it to expire, so we eventually will need to extend that. Most towns just did it for 30 days, 2 months, and actually Riverhead was the one that kept it the longest period, so you have time to work with that, and make sure, we'll have to work with, the fire marshals to make sure that we extend their permits, so we'll work on that, and Tim, if you could make sure that that all takes place. I think it expires on the 30th, so you have time to do what you wanna
Right.
do.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Forgive
very
me
much.
if you said this, and I assume you're not going back and doing purchases that people already made, because I did see a lot of people that bought, when you're downtown eating, you saw people that bought a bunch of picnic tables or different things.
Right, we
This
are,
is moving forward.
we are looking to do a, match with proof of purchase dated October 1st or later. But
Okay.
if you, advise that you want to begin November 1st, after this is voted on, that's, fine with us as well.
Okay.
Good,
Great
thank you.
job.
Thank you, good job.
Yes,
Chris.
thank
very
you.
much.
It's a great thing.
The next discussion item surrounds a public hearing on bonding for improvements of the parking district. Bill Rothar and Councilman Hubbard.
Okay. Want me to struggle? Rarely do we ever get good news. We have some good news this morning.
But
If you recall, we spoke about, making all the repairs and redoing the parking lots at a cost of about $821,000, to which we wanted, the parking district, voted to put a bond out and, pay this off over 10 years, and should be able to do the same through their budget and monies that they have. The good news is, from $821,000, after, Drew Dillingham, the town engineer, spoke with one of the companies that bid on this, he realized that they were trying to do something differently than what we wanted, and a lot more expensive, and he went back and they canceled that person out of the bid because they weren't doing what was asked, went to the next bidder, and it went from $821,000 to $725,000. So we're saving $90,000+ on the cost of the bonding of that, and that's gonna make a big difference in the payback. What we need to do is get going on this, and that's what Bill's gonna talk about today, what has to be done. This way we can be ready for the spring for the asphalt season as the plants shut down for the colder months. And when they open back up, we'll be able to hit the ground running. So this was very good news. Rarely, like I said, do we hear that we're gonna save a bunch of money, so this was nice, and it's projects that need to be done. The one thing we have discussed is, because of the workings with the town square and the purchase of the buildings, that we're gonna hold off on the Peconic parking lot and make that our last project, because we don't wanna repave and do an area and then find out it's gonna be ripped up due to what the town square is gonna do. So we will put that one on the back burner for right now, but the rest we can certainly get started on.
Great.
Okay, so that is good news, and on that note, we're really just talking about the timing of this. I know we all spoke about the 821, it was something everyone wanted to do. Now this makes that even better. So the timing of this is, I'll change the dollar amount to $725 for Wednesday's meeting, excuse me. And that'll give us, the timing is going to be a notice to the paper on the 12th of November, which gives us enough time. It's got to be between 10 and 20 days from the notice until we actually have the hearing. So the hearing would be on December 1st. Bonds would be authorized, and then we'd have our permissive referendum and so forth. So that'll give us plenty of time to get started in the spring.
That's great.
Okay?
And I see Dawn is here, so we haven't heard back about any of the grant funding to knock that cost down even further.
Yeah, actually, I can address that really quick. We just got this week, I think maybe Monday, the contract from the county. And so the supervisor has signed it, we've returned it to the county, along with some of the information they need. We just have a few more documents to get them, and that should be on its way, so that's good news, and that's $74,925.
That would come off the 721, that's great.
Thank you.
Good news.
So in that case, either way, we're gonna do the authorization for $725. So whether we get that exact dollar amount or whatever it may be, we still have the authorization to spend it regardless of when that gets signed. Okay, and then we also can bond the money whenever the projects are complete. It's almost like a line of credit. We have a $725,000 line of credit, which we only spend $650 possibly.
And the interest rates are still bottom low right now.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems when I first took office, is that we had all the bond anticipation notes that were outstanding, which was affecting our credit rating. So you never like to put out a bond anticipation note for more than what you actually need, but I know we haven't done that.
Yeah, so what we do is, the bond authorization expires after 10 years. But if you finish the project before then, so if this project is finished in a year and we go out to bond in 15 months, the board then rescinds the remaining open amount. So it's not like, again, having that ability to go out and bond that anymore.
Which is one of the first things that we did when I took office, with your guidance and advice, was to rescind a lot of those bond anticipation notes for the ball fields and other things where we were on a cash-as-you-go in order to meet the demands of the public, what they wanted, so.
And that helps with Moody's. It also helps keep us in check as far as we don't have that to be able to go out and spend until, the board decides on what else we're gonna spend that on, so.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Good. Okay, and moving forward, we have the water district. Frank Mancini? I just want to inform the public that there was a surcharge that they received of $80. This was something that was worked out. Frank Mancini will, explain the purpose of it. I also understand that the public was not made aware that they, were able to pay off the surcharge over, 4 quarterly, payments of $20. And you're just here just to clarify this and inform the public.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so the purpose of the rate increase is to fund our existing capital improvement plan. And if there are any specific questions to that, I can address them specifically. The rate increase has been in the works for 18 months prior to its adoption. We started the first work session discussion on June 4th. June 8th, the Riverhead Local did an article about it. We then adopted it in July, early July. By June 7th, they had done an article that was really, described it quite well. The Riverhead News Review did an article on it June 6th. So it was out there in the public. Then, as soon as it was adopted, the district paid for its own advertising in both of those publications with a link directing you to the website where the rate increase is explained at depth. At that time, we also put a link on the town's website in the notification section that linked you to the district's website that has all of this listed. This communication problem really occurred because the bill that I am able to send out is produced with equipment that's over 40 years old. It's a tri-fold heat-sealed bill, not an envelope. So I was not able to put any notifications into the bill other than it does say annual water surcharge, and it directs you to our water district website so that you can educate yourself on the exact details of how the rate increase is going to be implemented. One of the improvements we need to make in the district is more modern billing production equipment, because I'll have to notify the public for all types of things, including regulatory. I think that was the confusion. So a lot of people don't go to the website, and they've been calling our office and contacting you guys. We decided to implement it in the 4th quarter for good reason as well, because it's right after your arrears are processed. So by implementing it now, you can pay it off at whatever frequency you like. If you want to do it $20 per quarter, you can do that. But you're also going into your two winter billing cycles that are generally less than half of your summer cycles. So you may decide to pay $40 for the 2 winter cycles. You may decide to not pay it and let it to go to your arrears. But by implementing it at the time frame that we did, we gave the customer the largest amount of options that they could possibly pay it off for. You think there's any other questions? Or?
No, that's just it. I just want to make sure that the public is aware that they can extend their payments over 4 quarters for $20. And I think, Frank, I know you're doing a really good job, and I thank you for it. I know that you produced a newsletter, and I think maybe in the future, I know it's well received, your newsletter. We'll just make sure that we include it.
Absolutely.
And this is just to inform the public, and thank you for coming.
Yeah,
And just to clarify, all of the water districts in Long Island are having to do the same thing, and I think that's where you got the idea from for the surcharge, was from the Suffolk County Water Authority, who recently put a surcharge on the water bills, and it was because they needed the money for the capital improvements, because
yes, you're right. It's a difficult time in the water business. The regulatory environment is getting stricter and stricter, and all of us have significant costs heading our way, and we're no different. And we've got projects that you guys know about. I mean, I would say half this surcharge is going to be used to paint our 2 tanks, and without it, we wouldn't be able to fund our projects, and that's what's put us in the position we're in now. So we've got to stop the bleeding, get these projects done so that we can make improvements to the district, and we're well on our way. We've got a good plan, and this funds it.
Okay, great.
and we're still paying less for water than
Yes.
our competitors as Suffolk County Water Authority.
Yes,
Which is who put the $20 surcharge on all of their water users' bills in order to pay for capital improvements. So, and we're still selling water at a lower rate than any of the water districts surrounding us.
You are correct. Prior to the rate increase, we were about 50% of the water district's bill. Now we're about 90% of the water authority's bill. So we still are the cheaper option, and we have to make our moves efficiently, because it sounds like a lot of money, but for the scale of our operation, it's not an enormous amount of money. So we've got to spend this money wisely to accomplish the goals we need to at the district.
And I know, in being on the board for the last 11 years, that it was very difficult for us to consider raising water rates because we were still operating at a 10% budget deficit every year until 2018, when we finally had a more normal balanced budget. So it's time to do the discussions then. As I said, if you don't have the money to replace your roof, you're gonna fix the leak before you replace the roof. But I'm glad that we finally have a balanced budget and that we can make the improvements necessary to the water district.
Yeah, I want to make it clear, I'm not being critical of the past in any way, because there was quite a bit of progress made on the water district during this time. We may not have painted the tank, but you built Plant 15, an enormous ground storage tank and site, the Edwards Avenue plant, the treatment required for that. Those were things we had to do just to meet demand. So if you have a choice of painting a tank and increasing your supply that you need to meet your demand, you have to increase the supply. So the district was not dormant and not making improvements. It just was not funded at a level to do these expensive sort of maintenance projects, because the tanks don't gain us a drop of water. At this point, though, we've got to bite the bullet and paint them, and then make additional improvements that are somewhat parallel to the improvements that we had made over the last decade or so. So now we have to do both, is the point now.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Frank.
Thanks so
great
much.
job, Frank.
Thank
as
you.
always.
Yes, agree.
Okay, moving forward. Number 4, accounting, matters surrounding the tentative 2021 budget. I'd like to make a few notes prior to us beginning the discussion. This was an effort that took approximately 2 months. We met with the budget officer, our financial advisor. We've met with every department. Some board members have met with their respective departments. The budget was provided to each board member for that is a liaison. Each department and the liaison received their budgets before we created a tentative budget. This was an arduous effort. We came in under the tax cap, and we also balanced the budget. We renegotiated the police contract that was negotiated last year with the help of Councilman Hubbard, and we were able to save, I believe it was $672,000, which helped us. We combined some departments, some efforts. Many of the department heads worked with us. We asked for 20% reduction, and we came in. And here we are. My responsibility as the town supervisor and the chief financial officer is to deliver the budget to the town, and we did accordingly. That was on October 30th, and we are here to, we brought this up for discussion. However, if members want to further discuss it, they have some time to do it. I know some of you have appointments. I think Catherine has an appointment tomorrow with Rothar, and we're just here for a general discussion, and we'll just go forward. I'm gonna open it up to the floor, but it's the budget of the town. I did my part. My responsibility is complete. And Jody, you have done 10 of these budgets, correct?
Yes, I have.
Therefore, I am asking you
Mhm.
to take the lead and monitor this. Again, you have the budget now. Everyone should move forward.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I've been spending some time in the accounting department and meeting and asking questions and getting reports and things of that nature. It's, I think it's a very honest budget. I see that the department heads have worked with you in that their initial requests have been reduced significantly, and I think it's something that they can manage with. I have, some concerns when it comes from, the municipal garage and the expense of the municipal garage, which I've been speaking to Mike Curtis about. And as far as the expense to the outside agencies like the police department and the highway department that use the municipal garage, that the rate of the, police department and all of the other departments are paying $125 an hour for service, for labor, and the highway department is paying $110 per hour, and highway and police are the bulk of it. So I think that we should possibly consider, bringing up the highway department hourly rate to $125 an hour versus $110. They're the only ones being charged $110. PD's being charged $125. That's just one thing that I can think of right now, right there. I see that we did cut back on the tow truck expense that was requested, and we're gonna be purchasing 5 pool cars for the various departments. But, I think, as Gio has been talking about for many years, it's important for the town to have a tow truck because the impound fees and the cost of the truck will far exceed, you know, the impound fees and the cost of operating the tow truck. Could help the town, especially when we have places where we can store impounded vehicles.
Okay.
I have,
Mike?
are you, oh, go ahead.
All right. My one big concern that I had spoke to Madam Supervisor about was the original budget in the early days of it. They were alleviating the cost of having ambulance personnel out in Jamesport, especially during the harvest season when the traffic is awful out there. I spoke to the supervisor about it, and she met with Mr. Rothar, and they were able to work it out and come up with the money to be able to do that. So to me, that was one of the most important things that had been originally cut out of the budget that was put back in, and I thank you guys for making that happen. There are a couple other items. I know there were cuts that were made. I spoke to Mr. Rothar. But some of this we have to keep in mind, some of this is because of COVID. Some of it will be reinstated should we get reimbursed down the road from FEMA and from the state and from the federal, as we hopefully anticipate. I mean, we know it may not happen. That there's always an outside chance. But if that money comes back, I'm assured that we would be able to make whole some of the departments and personnel that we cut back on, that we're gonna be able to move forward and make them whole again by additional employees and additional purchases. I also wanna say that I think this budget is very fair. I think there were a lot of cuts. This wasn't easy to do for you guys, I understand that. Cuts were made, department heads were good, they played ball in
Sure
doing
did.
this. They didn't try to bolster up their
Well, one department did.
numbers. Well, yeah, but for the majority, they didn't.
I see him back there.
And
Yeah, you wanna double.
they realized the severity that the town is in. So I give credit to the department heads for working with us on that also. But one of the biggest things that I'm in favor of with this budget is A, not going over the cap, not piercing the cap, but more importantly, not laying anybody off from the town.
That was the
And
goal.
to me, that was huge, because this was very difficult, and I know we had these conversations that we really felt we were gonna have to cut some people. And, that's the last thing you wanna have to tell somebody that, you know, works with you, that, sorry, we can't keep you any longer. So I give you guys great credit, I appreciate it. I wish we had more to work with here, but we don't. It is what it is. And you guys, I think, did a really, really good job based on what we have, so I appreciate it.
So, Tim,
And I wasn't done before.
just to add to your comment, when we had a draft,
Mhm.
it wasn't cut, that's why it was a draft and
Right.
sent out to everybody, so you can make your
Correct.
suggestions. So it
Correct.
wasn't a cut and then put back in, it was a draft copy. This is a starting point, and there was many copies after that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
and then you got the copies until you got the tentative,
Right.
before we submitted. And you're right, the goal was to keep everyone employed as much as we can. Other towns have furloughed and laid people off, and we were fortunate to do that. The effort again, and I just wanna thank everybody, you know, Jody was a very big part of it, and, you know, our conversations, Lothar, and, we're in good shape. And just to circle back on your statement about funding, yes, again, everyone is aware, the departments that when we get funding, we can apply it, because we can show what our budget was in the prior year and where we had a cut. So, that's something that will happen. There is a bill in Washington, we're waiting for the next, HEROES Act bill. Riverhead is supposed to be receiving, I believe, $11,600,000 for 2020, and another possibly, $5,600,000 on, next year. So, for 2021, if that comes through, we're gonna have a very, very good budget. And we have all the savings from the police department, so I think we're gonna be in.
Yeah,
really
we,
good-
as long as we don't forget, we need a fire marshal, we need
Yes.
a planner, a full-time planner.
Yes.
We're losing the part-timer now, so we need
Mhm.
definitely a full-time planner to come in. Code enforcement, we still have a couple officers
Yes,
there to add.
we're working on that.
You know,
Sure,
and
do
these
that.
were conversations we had
Highway
with.
too.
Yeah, but they
Yes,
just hired two
yes,
people
Yeah,
also.
one guy just resigned.
Again, okay,
Yeah.
we'll work on that.
I know, I'm just
So
saying.
work on
So
progress, yeah.
these are all things that we're mindful of, and we are aware that the needs are there, and, as soon as we can, we will make them whole.
Right, and if I could just finish where I was
Yes.
going,
Yeah.
because I agree with Tim, you know, the 30,000 for the ambulance out in Jamesport is something that I had to, tried to add to the budget last year, and it was rejected by the former supervisor and the town board, but I'm happy to see that it is in the budget this year, and, or for next year. And I think it's very important, especially with the traffic growing on the east end, so,
Jody, they also
Thank you
informed
for
me, the ambulance chief informed me, the president, that, not only are they continuing it through November, they have enough funds left in their budget, they're gonna go to January 3rd, I think, with coverage. So that's good news for the people out in Jamesport. And eventually, we'd like to make that year-round, obviously.
permanent.
Because it's
And-
not fair to that part of the town to not have, speedy, first aid available when needed.
okay, and I thank the supervisor for allocating the funds and
Mhm.
agreeing to do that for that, where it was rejected last year to be put into the budget. Thank you.
You're
So-
talking about life and safety.
Yeah, you can't mess
Yeah,
with that.
this is
You
not
just can't.
something to bargain or to take sides on.
Yep.
It's critical to our residents.
If I can just make a couple of comments. In my 25 years of preparing budgets, this was the most difficult one. And I think in large part because of the uncertainty. When we prepare budgets, we have a certain amount of uncertainty that we give ourselves a cushion for. The uncertainty here is beyond what I've ever seen before. Even in revenues coming in, so we talked about if we get some of that money, how we put some of these positions in. So Tim, you had mentioned about, you know, everybody, you know, reducing their budgets and playing by, you know, as we asked them to. But they originally put in the amount that they were telling this board they need to run their departments. So when we did cut the, code enforcement, and we did cut, positions in building and planning, fire marshal, because they weren't here now and we couldn't afford to add them. But if we get that money, or even if our revenues come back, we could potentially let the board decide who's the first to come back based on necessity. A very conservative revenue budget. We got numbers from the, county and from the state on how much they're cutting our funds for, but we don't know when building permits are picking up and things like that. So those are all the things that are more unknown, and we were very conservative in cutting those. We actually wound up cutting $1.9 million in anticipated revenues from the current budget, just to make sure we had enough. So if that's conservative enough, when we start picking up at some point in '21, we will be in better shape. A couple of other things, Supervisor mentioned the $600,000 that we actually cut from last year. We
Isn't
are
it like
spent,
closer to 700,000?
yeah, 684,000.
Yeah, it's,
okay?
700,000.
That's 1.14% we cut in spending for next year versus this year. When you know you have, you know, increases going up because of the cost of living, whether it's insurance or whatever else it may be, and we cut 684 in the three major funds.
And
It's
Bill,
underspending the budget, which is what I complimented you on, because that's what we had tried to do for the last 10 years in order to balance the budget. And with this COVID crisis, underspending the budget is utmost important, and we've had great leadership in telling us along the way, no, you know, and telling department heads, the difficult job of department heads, no, your people can't have that promotion, even though it was promised and even though it was budgeted for. We can't give them the promotion this year, but we're going to try and arrange for it next year. And that was very difficult thing as a supervisor of a town to have to tell department heads and to tell employees that we appreciate you and what you're doing, but we just can't give out promotions right now with, the loss in revenue and everything else that's been going on as far as expenses, COVID related.
And that was not only a decision made in Riverhead Township, that was from the state, the county, and local level governments.
Yep.
They also had freezes on all hiring, so we didn't do anything, we just followed. But Bill, you also wanna mention, we also had a substantial amount of costs that we were able to incorporate concerning the retirement fund. The state notified us, early October, that we, were gonna pay an additional
It's like $750,000,
$758,000 that we, the town, have to come up with and pay, for the retirement funds for employees. So you
And-
couple that, that's not some chump change, obviously.
And-
And so we had to work with that, and so you're right. And you said it was your most difficult budget, it was an act, but you know what? We all came together, the town came together, the council
So,
members came
I'd like to
together,
jump
the
in
department-
here
Okay. If I
when you're
could just, if I could just respond to that, and that came in late because the state retirement system and our actuaries are projecting based on performances what the rate has to be. And in doing that, and especially last minute like that, it made this even more difficult, but we had PBA and SOA extend, the payouts of retirement pay and stuff like that help us get through that.
And that was a difficult challenge, because when you proposed it, after we discussed it and we talked to, Tim, the unions the police unions had to go and, renegotiate it and present it to their constituents.
Right.
And we weren't sure, we were, waiting and hoping that, they would agree with us, and after a little bit of negotiation back and forth, we reached that agreement, and that wasn't an easy task, I remember those days. It was a month ago, but
So, and all said, we were able to keep within the tax cap, which is important, so.
So I'd like to jump in and talk
Okay.
about this a little bit. I did read over the whole budget. I'm gonna take down my mask, Bill. I think we have enough space between us so
Okay.
people can hear me. First of all, I wanna say that I agree. I think it's a good budget. I think that you did a good job trimming. This is certainly not an easy year for any entities to do their budget, municipalities and such to do their budget. This is, that we can't, you had big challenges, and I thought, you did a good job on, and I poured over
Again,
everything.
it was everybody, but
For the last few days. And I agree, I'm glad that we haven't had to do cuts because we had with our employees, because we have such a great workforce in Riverhead, and I'm hoping that we can keep all of those people. I do have a few questions. I have some general questions, and then I have just a couple of specific questions. And some of them you kind of touched on already. Some of my questions have already been answered. So, a main concern for our town and for all municipalities, as we know, is the fallout due to COVID in regard to revenue. I'm wondering if you have the most recent number on our projected shortfall for 2020, Bill?
I can send that to you. We have numbers through September 30th, so I
Okay.
can send the board that calculation or estimate.
Okay, do you have the number through, do you have the most recent
The
one?
the last one I did was probably at the end of the budget process, and it was around 780,000, so I don't know where that is in the ensuing month, so I can calculate that. and let you
Okay.
know.
And what do you think are the top, if you could tell me the top 5 areas that you think impact that number? And I wonder if you could just go over those lines for me. By the way, I wanna mention, and I don't know if anyone else feels that way, I worked off of the document that was on the web on your accounting page. I find it much easier to work off of the pages with the actuals. And personally, I would like it if our regular budget, if we switch to a format that includes the actuals, because it's much easier, I think, for anyone to be able to look at what was the actual amount spent the previous year or even the previous 2 years. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
That's what I have, I request it every year, what the
Yeah.
actuals are.
Right, it's just, well, I think it would be worth it to us to do that format for the regular budget. I think it's helpful to us, and I think it would be helpful for the residents that wanna look at the budget.
Okay, so we did, before we went to a new system, have information more in the landscape that gave us previous year's history. There's two trains of thoughts there. This is more concise as to what we're doing, it's easier to read, but when you get into the weeds, is where you wanna get into that supplement that we have on the side. We don't print out the supplement because it's another 100 pages that we don't necessarily have to print, and it's right there.
And the budget that's presented in the website is for your layperson who doesn't wanna go in and that information is available for anyone. And that's, public knowledge, so.
I think you had previously stated that too, in the past, that you thought we should have the actuals on there.
Well, us as the board and put it online, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why the supplement is there, so you can
It
look
is
at that.
there.
It's just separate from that, so once you get to looking at it and say, well, I wanna know what happened to this revenue that we're projecting less, that's when you can look at the history and say, here's why. We can see it's downtrending or whatever the reason.
Yeah, so I think it was provided also on the net, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
all of that is available also on the
And
net.
I'm not gonna belabor the point, but it's my recommendation, and I just think it's better all round when you're looking at a budget to have the actuals on there. But anyway,
We do have it.
I was asking you about the top 5.
Yeah, well, that's fairly simple. Let me just make a note, please. Okay, so the revenues that we're losing, as I said, the county, had stated a 50% decrease, and the state a 20% decrease. So the state itself, the decrease from their 20% is $238,000, a decrease from the previous year. The county in sales tax alone is $857,000. There's $1 million of your $1.9 million. There are a bunch of other ones, building inspection fees, I'm estimating 150 less. That's one of the conservative ones that hopefully, we make, more than what I'm projecting. The other large numbers, fines and forfeited bails between bail reform that never really got started and then COVID. I don't even know where to go with that, so I reduced that by 150, and I'm hoping that we get something, less than that in the 2021 budget. But those are the big numbers that get us to $1.9 million. There's a bunch of numbers that are, between 75 and 100,000 that maybe aren't worth mentioning right now, but that's the bulk of the $1.4 million of the $1.9 million that we're projecting to lose in 2021.
Thank you, Bill. So also, what is the current reserve and how much of it will be used?
Okay. There will be none used. None of the reserve is going to be used. And for those listening at home,
That's in the budget, that can be easily determined from the budget.
yeah, you look on page 4 for those
Yeah,
listening at
it's on
home.
the budget, what's,
6.9 million is our projected reserve at the end of this year, and that's very simply our balance as of 12/31/19, assuming we're not spending any, because we didn't budget to spend any surplus in 2020. One of the things we had talked about was the wrecker, and we had some money in there for pool cars. When we pause spending, all the equipment and things like that will pause. We have a garbage truck that we may need, and some other things we may need just to fill this budget or not spend. So that 155 is not being spent. We're considering getting a 5-year lease on a garbage truck if we can do that, so we spread that over 5 years, therefore only spending 40 of that 150 instead of having to come up with 200 somewhere. So all of that reduction or all the pause in equipment spending and things like that is what helped us get to this point. So to project our fund balance, I'm projecting we're breaking even, but obviously we don't know what's gonna happen until the end of the year. But we're at 6.9 million as of 1/1/2020 is our fund balance, which has been increased since our low. It's been going up the last 3 or 4 years, and
Because
now we're closer to 13%. Our policy is 15. We were down at 3 at 1.3%.
Right, so we kept having to, as did Phil Cardinale in the 2000s, kept having to take from the fund balance in order to not hit everybody over the head with an 18% tax increase
Correct.
when I took office in 2010, and just taking a little bit from the fund balance and then slightly raising taxes over the 10-year period, which was the plan when we
That's
first
correct.
came into office, to where finally, after that time, we could have a balanced budget, to where we could start replenishing the fund balance rather than taking small pieces from it. And then rolling money over from underspending the budget and putting it back into fund balance every year.
And that's where you spoke about projects. You don't do your roof this year, you fix the leak. We didn't do a lot of capital projects. We had a lot of debt from the landfill back then that we had to wait till we paid off. One of the things we've done over those years is the debt's been paid down, so the amount we have in our debt service, which is our annual debt payment, has reduced to the point where we were able to balance the budget several years ago.
Right, and we kept-
And we've been making money, so to speak.
And we kept chopping away at the annual audit too, where our credit rating was, our bond rating was, you know, not great. But because we kept chopping away at the annual audit and correcting the things that were in the audit, then we were able to bring our bond rating back up. But it took a long time to do that, and it took a plan as to what we were going to do along the way, and the computer system was one of the biggest hurdles.
Waited how many years? That's why this just came out 2 years ago, cause I waited 10 years before we were able to even do that, so.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna keep going, I don't have that much more.
Okay.
My next question, you really kind of addressed it, but I'll see if you wanted to add anything else to it. As we transition into next year, how are we making up for the shortfalls in this year's budget? But you kind of addressed that, you talked about the cuts that you're making.
We froze all spending at that point, and
Right.
not buying, basically, salaries and, utilities and things like that are being spent.
Okay, and on a specific, another question, I didn't see the stipend for Geo for the municipal garage, it's not listed, it's supposed to be listed on the elected officials page.
It's not on the elected official page, cause that's a legal
Right.
aspect of it, but if you look in the budget, it is in the, municipal garage, included in the salaries, it's not listed. The board has to pass a law in order to do that.
Right, so it is not a public official salary, Catherine, therefore it won't be on that section of the budget. His salary is on there, there is $20,000 for the garage, and it is in the budget.
And there will still be Geo will still receive the stipend.
The board has to pass a local law to do that, from my understanding, we can check with the town
Yes,
attorney, but I think
That's what we
the
did last
process.
year,
Yep.
right, Anne Marie?
That's
That has to
correct,
be
there, we
discussed.
gotta do the local law.
And we'll discuss that eventually.
Sorry, Anne Marie, I
Yeah.
didn't notice you were there. I'm
in
sorry.
dis-
She doesn't have a mic.
In executive session, we'll discuss that, cause that's
Correct.
contractual.
Okay, one of the questions I had was, we had talked about adding code enforcement people into that department, but Tim, both of you sort of talked about that. That was something that I know was really important to the people in the town, that was something that we talked about, but that's already been answered. Just a little thing on the parking permits, on the list on the revenue on the parking permits, most of them are 0, but there's 1, are they all lumped into one on that?
Yeah, so what happened was actually, in 2020, Ray had changed his process, and he has gold and silver and platinum passes
Yeah,
instead
I
of
know.
seniors,
Yeah.
non-seniors, and residents and non-residents. He just felt it was an easier, way to do that. So it's a transition where the total between both of them are the same, but you see 100,000 less in one number and so on and so forth. So it's really just a reclassification.
Well, they're all 0, but I wondered if they were all lumped into the, platinum.
Yeah, that's
4x4 boat, I'm thinking residential, they must
That's
all be in, were they all lumped in that?
Yeah,
Okay.
So, yeah, if you look back to, parking permits, daily and all those other permits, if you add the ones that we did have versus 100 that we added into platinum, that's,
Okay. On the childcare rent, we already took in 4,717, is that for the daycare that went over, the Bloom Center that went over to Stotsky? Or is that from, and then I think, I feel like there wasn't revenue listed there, that, just had a question on that, because we do have someone in that building now.
I'll have to go back and look at it,
That's
but
on
when
the
did we
third,
sign
it's
that?
on the revenue actual page, the 3rd page out of 7.
When did we sign that contract, do we know, Bob?
Anne Marie, what month was that we signed the
It
Bloom?
was September.
Yeah, it was it was the end of August, September, I think.
it was late August.
'Cause we were trying to get it done before school started. Alright, just,
Yeah, so that's why it wouldn't be there, so if we now have an estimate for that, that'll be something that we'll be collecting that we didn't budget for, so it'll be
There
around
we go.
next year.
that's what I was hoping.
14,000, I think it is, something like that. For the year.
On the registration for summer programs, I'm just wondering, I'm thinking because of COVID, we may end up cutting some of those, let's see.
Oh, now we're talking about the AO6 fund or the recreation fund?
On page 7 out of,
Yeah.
5 out of 7.
Yep, that's what it would be. So that is a self-balancing fund.
Mhm.
The way that works is Ray, tries to see trends in what's going, so we're going away from maybe, soccer and going towards lacrosse or whatever it is, whatever, he has more participants in. So he puts that budget in, and in a case where we have, less of those classes because of COVID or whatever it is, he doesn't spend the money until he actually, brings the money in. So if we're all registered and there's only the 6 of us and there's not enough for a class, then we don't spend the money, we don't have referees and so forth. So that revenue is specifically tied to the expense for the referees and everything else to run the program.
Okay, thank you.
So if we don't receive the revenue, then obviously we're not incurring expenses.
Then, the same thing with the registration for the summer programs. I'm assuming we might end up having to cut back on that revenue.
On which program?
Registration for summer programs?
Yeah, they're all in the same fund. PAL is the AO4 fund, and recreation is the AO6 fund, and those are all self-balancing, so we only expend the money when we bring in the revenue.
Right, so if you have it as a revenue line, you also have an expense line for it, and if there's no revenue because the programs are not happening, there's no expense.
Exactly.
Simple.
And I had a question about the sales tax, but you answered that. And of course, there is a concern if the percentages could become even more. Have we thought about that? I mean,
Well, we did get word from both the county and the state that the percentages cut were 20 and 50. So, that's what the budget's based on. Couldn't afford to cut any more, number one, and we're taking the word that that's what it's gonna come out at. The county, it's simple enough to say that's what they're telling us they're cutting us by, so it's in their budget, we can expect that. And, the state, I'm not really sure, they're saying they're giving us they're cutting it all by 20%. There's several lines, maybe
We've been
7.
notified, our office, and I have related that to you, that at one point it was 20%. And then, the county personally notified me that it was gonna be 50%, and I've notified, you and spoke to Jody about it, and so, yeah, that's been established, and it's not a myth, something that it is written, told, expected, it's been in the news, and so we were very conservative and pursued it.
And it really is a real smack in the face, because the sales tax revenue is down for the county and the state. So we're already starting out at a deficit as far as what we receive, and that money that we receive from the state and from the county goes to offset the cost of the police department and police services on County Road 58, where all of our retail establishments are, which seem to have picked up as far as theft and everything else. So it's, our police department is doing more work. The sales tax revenue is less, because the state's not getting it and the county's not getting it, and they're giving us 20% less of less. So we're still expected to enforce all of the state and the county roads with our police department, and we're not getting the money to offset the budget.
on the rental income wireless, we were supposed to, I just wondered where we were at. I think we were putting an RFP out on that, Bob, on the wireless rental. Weren't we putting out an RFP on that?
That's water district funds.
Yeah, I think
The
that,
wireless goes on the water
I think the wireless, towers are the water district. We
So it
did,
goes-
we did do an RFP a while
Right,
back, but
that's what I
it was
thought.
never acted on. I don't believe.
If you go to EW1, and I don't know, I didn't print, I do have a revenue for that. If you go to the revenue in EW1, that's the water district, that's where you'll see wireless, revenue
great.
budget.
And what about the solar panels for revenues? Thought there was some revenue for solar panels, no?
Is that the community benefit fund?
Is that,
No.
no?
No, solar panels that we put on,
Did you get that from the budget? You're
Yeah.
asking the question, and you said
no,
you
I
re-
came up with that one.
Yeah, you said you reviewed the budget, and now solar panels
Yeah.
comes in, that's not in the budget.
And that was all. I have one more, just about the one on police equipment and scanners. Let's see, there was 150,000 budgeted. That I think maybe we underspent that. Is that why we're budgeting 120,000 for this year?
Right, that was, and I don't remember how long a period we were supposed to be, building that out. This is like a 4-year, period that we're building that out. I think we had, I don't wanna say we paused, cause we may have spent some money on it, but not all of it, which just pushes whatever we didn't upgrade into next year, so, whatever the number is for next year is what the chief is looking for to finish that. And I can check with him to see if that's the last year of these major upgrades there.
Okay, great, thank you, Bill. Those were all my questions.
And, one more thing that I wanna say about the state and the county, not only cutting back on what they're giving us as far as sales tax revenue, our retirement has increased by 22%, Bill, if I'm not mistaken. 24% is what they're charging us additional
24%.
on top of
No,
our
it's-
retirement fund that we have to keep.
It's 24% of the salaries is what the number is.
24% of the salaries, and they're making us actually tangibly have that in an account now. And then they have the, health insurance costs that they're increasing by 17%. So we have to budget for that, even though we won't know what the actual number is until the beginning of next year.
Right.
So, excellent job.
That's
To
what I'm
you.
saying,
Great
the
job.
unknown
Any
is
comments?
Yeah,
more so.
And thank
No.
you, and you'll get back to me on a couple of those things.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Excellent
Bill,
job
great
to
job,
you.
and thank you for answering any of my questions. He's always been great. Hey, Bill, what's this about? You know, he's always forthright with us, and, I'm so glad we didn't pierce the cap. That was a great thing, and we didn't have to have any layoffs, which is absolutely wonderful. We have one of the finest, labor workforces
Agreed,
around.
agreed,
Thank you.
absolutely.
And I
all
wanna
you do.
thank the board members that met with Bill and drove him crazy for
Yep.
2 months. Those who chose to, dig in, some of you were really in there, pulling things out, and thank you for,
Well,
working.
I'm always
towards-
available, and I know that's how you make your decisions, so the more information you have, the
Yes.
more informed decision you guys make.
Great.
And we can't
Appreciate it,
forget
Bill.
our budget officer, Lisa, back
Yes.
there,
Yes.
who's been in her office many times too, talking
Yes.
about this, so.
Okay, so moving forward, I am going to go out of line. I have to tend to a matter that just arose, and I'm gonna, after I make the statement on this item, I am going to, tend to that, and my deputy will take over my meeting. We're gonna go to the last item on the menu, which is CMA mining proposal. I'm just gonna make a couple statements. I'm gonna ask Murphy, we've had a lot of inquiries on it, and, I checked with the, town attorney's office, and they have informed me that they've been very aggressively, pursuing, the matter, concerning CMA, the proposed, tanks, propane tanks. Within a day that they became aware of this project back in December, the town was alerted, the planning board, the, legal department, and the, planning department unified in effort. They knew that there may be some concerns, and they wanted to address them. An expert was immediately retained last year. In in December, the DEC sent a notice seeking agency status. At the same time, the town was requesting lead agency. A battle ensued, causing the commissioner of the DEC, Basil Siegel, at the state level to resolve the issue. He ruled in favor for the DEC to have lead status. On February 15, 2020, my office received a letter from the DEC asking to take lead status. I responded that I would hold true to the, to lead agency concerning our town. We need lead agency at that time. Thereafter, on, I believe it was in August, Anne Marie, the, commissioner granted the DEC lead agency. On 10/21, I received a letter of complete application from the DEC concerning the, CMA project, and at the same time, we received a negative declaration for the project. which is very interesting that the DEC, how do you accept the letter and then at the same time issue a neg deck the same day?
This is the landfill, just to be clear, on
Okay,
Youngs
yeah.
Avenue and
So
Osborne Avenue.
it's up for
The
discussion.
mining permit.
It's right, it's
Next to the
adjacent.
landfill.
Okay, so I am,
Adjacent to the
this is
landfill.
why it's up, Jody, so it's up for
Yeah.
discussion and you guys take it from
I
here.
know you said tank starting out,
Oh,
so
sorry,
that's
yeah,
why I was
okay.
confused.
Yep. So I am going to leave you with that note, and Devin, would you please take over the meeting for me?
There is also a very short update,
Great.
and I have some
Okay, so I
paperwork
would let
for
her-
you, so.
Let her get
Yeah.
situated,
Okay.
and then we can,
All right.
and so she can take notes, do what she needs to get done,
All right.
and everyone be safe.
So, I'm glad that the supervisor brought this up, I'm glad that we're talking about it today. I think this is a matter of grave importance to our community. And the timeline on all of this was really important because, we only have 4 months from when an action occurs to, if we wanted to pursue an Article 78. So the timing is important. I did feel like there was a breakdown in the correspondence, and I would hope that, I don't know if our planning department wants to address that, but I would hope that the board would be kept, better informed. I went all through, and we didn't really get very much information on this. I did look over carefully. I'm glad to know that our town attorneys are looking at this. I did look over the EAF, I won't get into that today, but I found a lot of, inaccuracies and omissions in the part 1 of the EAF, and that's why I was asking for the part 2 and 3 of the EAF, but Jefferson let me know that those would be at the DEC. But I'm concerned with all the omissions and the inaccurate statements that are made in part 1 of the EAF, how they based, the DEC based their decision upon that concerns me, but we'll talk about that moving forward.
Well, I'd like
Well,
to hear what
I-
Jefferson has to say about it now, and the town attorney, because from what I just heard is that we got a letter on October 21st saying that they had declared lead agency and then neg decked it essentially at the same time.
Again, I'm gonna cut Jefferson short really quickly, because any discussion on the EAF and potential challenges, I'm going to ask that we defer and leave that for an executive session, legal discussion as
Right.
to what we do next.
So that's with the outside
And I
consultant.
know that, I
Correct,
understand that.
correct. I just wanna make sure we're
Yeah.
clear on that. I just wanna reiterate that. Also, just as a quick update, and I have this for all the board members, and we put this on the website, we just learned that the EMB notice was issued, and that was issued on October 28th. So, yesterday. So
Right.
this is for the notice of completed application as well as the neg deck. So again, I have copies for the town board, and we'll put it up on the website. This, we just got.
So
just
the
received.
October 21st decision by Judge Basil was to give the DEC lead agency, and then 7 days later, you got the complete application and the neg deck.
No, actually, on the 21st of October, I believe, we received a email indicating there was a notice of complete application. Same date, that was when the notice of the neg declaration was received. But this is, telling us that this has only been put up on the EMB, the Environmental Notice Bulletin, yesterday.
Right, and that's really late for that to come out on the EMB, correct? And
Again,
the public, obviously, the public was not made aware, but,
we weren't made aware. We
Right.
just learned about it today.
yes,
The EMB is the
I know.
DEC website.
I know that.
Well, it's the website where these notices get posted by
Right.
anybody, whether it's DEC or
Okay.
the municipalities.
Good afternoon, Jefferson Murphy, Planning Department. In addition to the brief comments that Catherine Kent made about the EAF Part 1, there are a number of substantive issues regarding this application that were left, I believe, unanswered by the DEC. And also, equally as important to that, there are a number of procedural issues and questions, and I believe deficiencies that are required by SECRA that are being brought into question as well. And again, I defer to Bob that we hold off on that discussion until we go into executive session. But those two things combined together, when we spent, if you remember the 331 East Main Street project, we had a 12-page negative declaration. Here we have a project of this magnitude, and the the negative declaration is barely 3 pages long. So that speaks volumes. So I'm gonna leave the rest of my comments to the execs.
So I mean, I'm gonna hold off all of my questions and concerns about the EAF for an executive session, because I do understand the importance of that. But I just wanna reiterate, I went all through to see my emails and whether I'd been apprised, and something of this magnitude, as a board member, I wanna hear more and I wanna know more about it, all along the way, so just wanna make that point.
So
Thank you.
I just want to credit the town board, because if you'll recall, you were alerted to this application.
You should probably go closer to the mic, because you have the mic.
You were alerted to this application on December 4th of 2019.
Mhm.
Within 2 days, this town board met with planning staff and the office of the town attorney and immediately proceeded to hire an environmental expert, because if you recall, we had a limited window of 20 days to get a detailed response in asserting our desire, our right, and appropriateness to act as lead agency. We did that by letter on December 17th. It is extremely extensive. Thereafter, months had gone by. We have a new supervisor, a new administration, and within 5 weeks of her administration, she received a letter from the DEC essentially making inquiry to her that perhaps under her administration, the town board no longer desired lead agency status. The supervisor sent a letter back off stating that at the time, back in December, the town board was unanimous and adamant in their desire to act as lead agency. In her letter to the DEC in December, she reaffirmed that and expressed that she was not going to change the direction that a unanimous town board had directed, and instead we were proceeding with it. The other point that's significant, and I'm repeating what the town attorney relayed, but we received this, the negative declaration and the complete application via email on October 21st. The town attorney immediately notified the supervisor and expressed the desire on behalf of legal and planning that we wanted to come before you immediately. What's significant about receiving it via email on the 21st is the negative declaration by the DEC is dated September 20th. We never received it on the 20th. Instead, we received it on the very same date that we received the notice of complete application of the DEC, dated 1 month later in October. So there are a lot of issues that we would
And
like
as
to-
pointed out, it only ended up on EMB yesterday.
Right. So there are a lot of issues that we legally want to discuss with the board that planning will participate in, because those, quote, SECRA non-compliance issues are in fact related to our legal advice. But I want to assure the board that, you know, our environmental consultant was extremely thorough. He has an excellent curriculum vitae, and, you know, I frankly don't believe that we didn't inform you. We were actually seeking to come before you and discuss it. While it came out in the paper, before we met with you, we just wanted to do it in the open forum so the public could be aware as well.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, but, I mean, for me, with all due respect, it was a long time period where I don't know, there was some kind of breakdown. For me, it seemed like a breakdown within the town that I didn't get information on it. But this is where we are now, and we move forward from
Well, with
here.
all due respect, there was no information. So
Right.
I mean, I think my office is always available to the town board members. You guys are there every day.
Well,
Uh,
when did you, and you just found
we-
out the
The
neg deck?
21st of October was when we received the email. Again,
21st. And what about the lead agency?
That was prior to that, and that's why there was no breakdown in communication, because we had to wait from Albany to make that decision. And we just found that out, let me give you the date of that, you probably don't have it available. August 11th,
August 11th was which decision?
that they were going to assume lead agency. And then a month after that, they, issued the negative declaration.
And without addressing all of our environmental,
No, no.
consultants' questions and our scoping
And
that we
again, I
have
don't wanna go
wanted.
into the substances of everything, but there's both a substance point of view and procedural that's required under SECRA are really significant and concerning issues.
So going forward, we need to address this in executive session and come to a
As to what next
consensus.
steps
Yes,
the town
exactly.
wants to go forward with.
Different rules for different players.
Right, so I hope we can get this on, oh, there you are, Devin. I hope we can get this on our exec right away,
I think
as soon as we can get it on, thank you.
When is it on?
Pending approval from the supervisor, it'll go on for exec. Okay.
Devin, I believe it was the supervisor's desire that we go into executive session today about this matter because the clock is ticking on it.
We'll confirm that with her, she just had to step out, Jeff, as you know, so we'll confirm that with her, and if that's indeed her wish, then that's what we'll do.
Right, and we'll have to amend the agenda to
reflect
include that discussion.
Right, absolutely, we'll take care of that. Okay, so, moving on, we're gonna jump back into sequence, we have 2 items remaining for discussion, for open discussion. So the next item up is the Peconic Green Group regarding a water conservation grant. Chip, I think we have 1 or 2 folks probably in the waiting room.
So I'm gonna start talking about this while you bring them in, actually, I probably should wait. I imagine they've been waiting quite a while, but I did tell them they were 5th on the agenda. It should be Glynis and Mark Hobner.
Hi, we're here.
Hi Glynis, hopefully Mark will come in at some point, maybe he couldn't wait any longer, I don't know.
He was on a second ago.
He was on a second ago?
Yeah. I just sent him a text to see.
Can you can you text him and see?
Yeah.
So Glynis approached me, you know, a few months ago. I'm gonna let her explain it, but Glynis, received a grant to use, and, we have been moving forward with, ways to spend the grant. She received a $15,000 grant, and we have been working very closely with the school district. They've been really helpful with Frank, from our water department has been working with us, and we have some opportunities for people within the community. We're going to be offering, you know, purchasing some things for residents, and that's why we wanted to get this on the, work session today, so that we could let the community know, and good, Mark is there.
Mark said you need to let him in.
I'm in, they just
Okay,
restarted
he's
the
here.
session for me, thank you.
Mark Hobner is a member of the Town Environmental Advisory Committee that I am the liaison to. He is the vice president of the North Fork Environmental Council for many years, and he is the moderator for the North Fork Audubon Society, 3 annual climate change summits, and I'm going to, Mark, I believe you're going to kick it off, correct?
Yeah, great, thanks.
And then I'll talk about
And I know
Glynis.
Glynis has a lot of the background on this, and it is her grant. But I'd just like to say that these are pilot programs that could be scaled up and replicated. They could be moved over to, for example, we've got the rain garden, which is mitigation and water reuse, into a native perennial, northeast native perennial garden that we have planned. This could be replicated anywhere in the town, and I would be very excited to move this into our municipal buildings to show people as a showcase how to reduce the amount of water that's running off and running into our surface waters and our bays and our creeks and so on. I think that's the important part of it. It's not an expensive project and can be done at the residential level as well, and I'd like to see that happen after we kick this off. The other thing is we've been working as another community engagement project with the high school, and we've got some very good help with Ryan Jacobellis and the principal over there to start reducing our demands on water for irrigation on the fields and their grounds. Again, showing people that we can reduce water with conscientious efforts, and it's something that we could, again, move over to the municipality and get this whole thing working. I just realized when we were sitting here that the drawdown, Project Drawdown, has added water. We're trying to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere quickly, and that's how we're involved with the DEC and the NYSERDA Climate Smart Communities and the Clean Energy Communities programs, which are getting us points, and water has been introduced, conservation of water has been introduced into the DEC and the NYSERDA programs. So this would be a very nice lead-in to those programs for our work at the municipal level. That's about all I've got. Glynis?
Thank you, Mark. Glynis is a member of the Downtown Revitalization Committee. She's an architect in town. And I know, Glynis, I'll let you explain, but Glynis did a pretty extensive project on water conservation, I believe in Southold. And to my knowledge, you served on some water conservation council through the county. I'll let you explain that. And Glynis, if you could just give an overview of what exactly is happening, the grant, and how we're dividing it up.
Okay, I have a grant from the Long Island Community Foundation, and I actually need to spend the money by the end of this year. So there is time pressure. So what I'm trying to do is divide it into $5,000 lumps. I've got a little left over in case something goes over. So $5,000 is for the school system, and we're focused on adding smart controllers and rain sensors to lower water use and sort of modulate those peaks with the Riverhead Water District. The other one that came out of this was at Pulaski School. We started looking, and the only one that worked with taking rainwater and kind of retaining it for reuse was Pulaski School. And it turns out there are a number of people, there's a teacher there that's willing to participate. A member of the environmental committee is willing to help spearhead, and the water district is working closely. I also need to add that the school system is very interested in using both programs as an educational tool, and there are some high school students that may be able to, take this further in the following year, using it for research and communication tools to help further, and they may be able to also help with the whole conservation idea by taking it to their homes as well. So it's a good way of expanding the program. So another portion of this is PR, and we've developed some text that we sent out, and we're trying to work with a graphic designer right now. So we would print that, and it would be available for distribution by the water district and also anybody else. And then the third item is we wanted to do a more public outreach. It can be commercial or residential, and we wanted to immediately put out a press release, and it's a quick turnaround. I just upped it to November 16th, where people would fill out a form and return it, and they would agree to allow us to use their water use records, so in the future we could track the impact on any improvements that are made. So we are offering, using up to $5,000 again of funds to give incentives for people to upgrade. And it could be water sensors, low flow EPA toilets, shower heads, aerators on faucets, that kind of thing. And it's open to anybody in the town of Riverhead. So those are basically the three components. And I have to say that the Riverhead Water District and the school system have been terrific partners. And you're very lucky to have such a water district. and I hope to work closely with them. So our ask of you is your blessing on these 3 programs. It includes a few things. Also, I should have mentioned the Girl Scouts may participate in the garden as well. So that's another partner in this. So we're asking for basically a couple of things from you. We want your blessing on the press release because we are mentioning the town. So we want you to be partners in this. I think any program, the more partners we have, the better it is. So that's immediate, and I'd like to get this out so it gets in the paper as soon as possible, and people can start applying for that rebate program. We also have the PR document, so if you have any comments on the wording, we did do some internal review with some of your departments. The water district looked at it, but I want to make sure you're on board. And the other thing is the water district has some old tanks that had chemicals and some old meters that might be able to be reused, and some of the irrigation area for the school, we might want to compare smart controller versus water sensor, because water sensor is much cheaper, but we'd like to judge the water savings between the 2. But that would mean adding a meter. So, and the old tanks might be good for retaining the runoff from the school that can be then fed into the garden or an irrigation system. So that was another ask, if the town was okay with giving leeway for, these are things that are sitting on the yard. They're not being actively used right now. So
Right.
if we could repurpose
Right,
those.
Frank said, we were looking for tanks, and Frank said that there were tanks on the property. Yeah, you can come up, Frank. And I said, well, if we're gonna give a donation, we always have to do that legally.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Glennis and her agency, because it's been really helpful, and this is a win-win for everybody. But what she's asking for is, when I take an old meter and replace it, we would break it down and recycle it for the brass and get a few dollars for it. So we'd be donating a handful of old meters so that we can do these essentially water use experiments, work with the kids. We benefit because we understand how this works in a real world scenario, and hopefully light the fire in some of these kids so that they become the next generation of scientists, engineers. And the tanks, we sort of hoard them in the district. Sometimes we might cut one in half and use it under a fire hydrant so it doesn't destroy the ground, but we've got a bunch of them in the back, and I would be comfortable donating 1 or 2 of these to these projects for the same reason. It's a benefit for all of us.
So just to reiterate, we're dividing into 3 sections. We're at the school district, we are going to monitor, I think, their irrigation at the middle school, correct?
Yeah, these are really looking at outdoor water use and namely irrigation. So we're going to compare, Glennis has offered to purchase the smart controllers for systems that can use smart controllers, and rain sensors where smart controllers won't be able to be used. So this is the perfect real world situation, because they need these fields to be viable, so you need to irrigate them. And all we're asking is that we develop strategies to irrigate them as efficiently as possible, use our water resources as efficiently as possible.
Right, at Pulaski Street, we're working on a rain garden, we're working with a science teacher at Pulaski, who also happens to be a Girl Scout leader, so we're bringing in the Girl Scouts. And then we're also doing an education component with it. We're working with a teacher who does environmental studies at the high school, and Frank and Glennis are going to be actually pushing into her classroom, probably via Zoom, and helping do an education component. And then from there, we're also going to do some sort of pamphlet or some PR piece about conserving water for the town. And then Glennis has equipment that I think we're going to be able to give away to residents. We're looking at water-saving things such as rain sensors that we will be giving to people who just fill out an application, and then we will give it to them. And I think we may try to send some people out to help install it. Am I correct? She's laughing
Yes,
at me.
I believe, yes. And just to reiterate, the people who who get into this program, we have to have your approval. It doesn't do us any good if we can't look at your water usage, because we need to do a side-by-side comparison. So we would not look at someone's water usage internally or externally without approval from them.
Glennis is everyone in this group has been volunteering their time and putting a lot of work into this, and as Glennis stated to me the other day, that in Riverhead, we have a real gem in the sewer department and the water department, and, I'm gonna reiterate that. So, thank you, Glennis. If there's anything else you wanna add, jump in, otherwise, we're gonna move on.
Before you guys drop off, I just want to, express our appreciation to Glynis, for your willingness to collaborate with the town on this, but just to be clear, I know that, Catherine and Frank, we spoke about it, I just wanna make sure Glynis is clear. Anything by way of a press release that you folks are gonna draft would need to be reviewed by legal, before that would get sent out, and also by the supervisor's office, so just to be clear. And then also the same thing for the PR, the proposed PR document.
Yeah, and we know that,
Okay,
just to let,
just wanted to
I
make
did let
Glynis
them know
'cause
that.
I know she's under a timeline, and I don't want to
mean-
hold her up at all, but there is a certain amount of review that'll have to take place with that.
Okay, if it could please be reviewed by tomorrow, because I've already lost a week and I need to
Okay,
get this up.
I'm not sure if we have it
I
yet.
do, and I can give it to you.
Okay, so we'll do what we can on that, Glynis, but I know it has to go to legal first, as I said, and then to the supervisor's office, so we haven't seen
Okay.
it yet. Okay.
Because
And
I
then-
do have a deadline that's coming up
We
very
don't wanna
fast.
we don't wanna waste money that you have to spend. Thank
Right.
you. Thank you
And
both
then-
very much.
And then also, Glynis, if you wouldn't mind just putting together a list, working with Frank as to the donation from the water district to the project, so that we can adopt a resolution authorizing the, transfer of that property.
Great.
Sure.
Yeah, I did let them know that we wouldn't be able to donate without a resolution.
Yeah, we know that.
We're good to go. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so the last discussion item we have here is building and planning. And this is for a special permit application for Great White Propane, a proposed propane storage and distribution facility located at 1807 Middle Country Road in Calverton. And I think we have Brian Cunningham who's gonna present this for us today. Welcome, Brian.
Good morning. Just like to make a quick correction to the agenda. Puts this project at 1807 Middle Country Road. It's actually just at 1807 Middle Road in Calverton.
Oh, okay, thank you, we'll make that change.
And we may have the applicant or the representatives from Bowler on, so should be in now. The Planning Department has received and reviewed a special permit application seeking approval to construct a propane storage and distribution facility on an existing piece of industrial zone land within the hamlet of Calverton. The proposed facility includes two 30,000-gallon propane tanks, a 1,056 square foot office, accompanying paving, parking, lighting, fencing, stormwater management, and a new sanitary system. The application also proposes the abandonment of an existing sanitary system, as well as the removal of an existing 1,215 square foot metal building. In order to establish the proposed use, the special permit from the town board is required. The proposed special permit and site plan application is an unlisted action pursuant to 6 NYCIR Part 617. Coordinated review is optional and recommended. Staff has reviewed a short EAF dated October 10th, 2020. Staff recommends the town board circulate a request for lead agency status for the purposes of secret review. Subject parcel is a .918 acre parcel located at 1807 Middle Road in Calverton, located to the west of the terminus of the Long Island Expressway within the Industrial A zoning use district. The site presently has a single-story, 1,215 square foot storage building located near the southeastern corner of the parcel, with the majority of the property being wooded. The surrounding uses are primarily industrial. The parcel shares its southern boundaries with the 17.5 acre parcel where Suffolk Cement Products, Inc. operates, and there are industrial operations of similar nature across Middle Road to the west of the parcel. There are 7 single-family residences located within the adjacent area, as shown in Figure 1 on page 2 of the report. The applicant must first apply for and receive any necessary variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals prior to the town board granting any special permits. Based upon a review of the site plan submitted with a special permit application, the applicant will need relief concerning outdoor storage area, yard setback, and side yard screening requirements. The northern boundaries of the parcel are shared with a parcel identified as Suffolk County Tax Map 600-100-3-2.6. This property is also within the Industrial A zoning use district. However, there is an existing and non-conforming residential use on this property, as well as a commercial use, as shown in Figure 3 on page 4 of the report. The presence of a non-conforming residential use on the adjoining lot requires certain transitional yard and screening requirements to be met by the applicant. However, due to the relative isolation of the residential use on the adjoining lot and the location of the commercial use, a denial letter has been provided to the applicant to allow them to apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding these requirements. The proposed use is consistent with the Industrial A zoning use district guidelines, as well as the existing uses in the surrounding area, and seems particularly suitable for a small lot within this zoning use district. Based on an estimate provided by the applicant in their special permit application, the site is expected to generate a maximum of 2 vehicular trips per hour, which should not be out of character for the neighborhood. The entrance to the site is not within 75 feet of an intersection. The Highway Department has received a copy of the special permit application and request for comments. The review is forthcoming. Drainage inlets for stormwater runoff, a new sanitary system, and a dumpster for solid refuse are all proposed on site. In a letter dated July 9th, 2020, the Water District Superintendent noted that the subject parcel is not located within the boundaries of the Riverhead Water District and cannot be served by the district. Additionally, it was noted that there is no water main located on Middle Road in this location, and that the nearest water main is located on Old Country Road in Riverhead, approximately 1,000 feet away from the property. However, there's an existing underground well on site which the applicant intends to utilize to provide water. In a memo dated September 11th, 2020, the Fire Marshal's Office requested documentation from the applicant to determine the project's compliance with relevant fire codes. Further review is forthcoming. This application will also be referred to the Riverhead Fire District for review. Considering the predominantly industrial nature of the area, the low-intensity nature of the proposed use will not impede or impair the reasonable and orderly development of the surrounding area. The site plan proposes 7 on-site parking stalls, including 1 handicapped accessible stall and access aisle. This is compliant with the town's parking schedule, as the proposed use of the property requires a minimum of only 4 parking stalls. However, the site plan must be revised to show 10-foot by 20-foot stalls, as the proposed 8-foot wide handicap accessible parking stall is not compliant with the town code. Although the New York State DEC Full Environmental Assessment Form Workbook does not establish significant traffic impact thresholds for the proposed use, it is unlikely that the volume of traffic that the site will create would be considered significant. Although the applicant has provided an estimate regarding traffic volume, the applicant should provide additional information on the nature of the traffic to the site. Useful information to provide would include information about the types of vehicles that would interact with the site, as well as the hours at which the traffic to the site would occur. Additionally, the applicant should provide a truck turnaround detail illustrating how vehicles that will interact with the site will be able to safely navigate. Notes on the land title survey provided by the applicant reference covenants and restrictions relating to water standards for the property. These covenants require that quality standards for drinking water be met prior to any occupation of a residence on the property. The applicant should initiate contact with the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, as approvals for the construction of the office will be contingent upon receiving their approval. Based on the aforementioned covenants, the applicant has expressed their willingness to implement a phased development of the site. Under this proposal, the site would initially be developed without the proposed 1,056 square foot office. This would allow the majority of the site, including the propane storage and distribution tanks, to be constructed and utilized while any approvals from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services are pending. 6 area lights are proposed for the site. 4 of these area lights would be placed around the rear storage area where the propane tanks would be located, and 2 would be placed near the parking area and office. The applicant must provide information regarding the specifics of the lighting in order to ensure compliance with the town's exterior lighting standards, including dark skies compliance. This application will be presented before the planning board for its consideration. Any comments and recommendations from the planning board will be referred back to the town board.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Does the applicant want add anything? Is this
Nope.
the applicant? Brian, is this the applicant? Okay.
This is
Hi,
Representative.
this is Alex from Bowler. I'm the design engineer on this project.
Hi there, how you doing?
I'm the engineer, yes.
Okay. Did you want to add anything?
Oh, no, he pretty much enlisted everything. The only thing I do want to make note, as far as the amount of traffic coming in and out of the site, we're anticipating about 2 trucks a day, both filling within evening hours, 3 to 5 o'clock, and then the trucks leaving in the morning to do their deliveries. So that's the only anticipated traffic with, 1 to 2 employees a day coming in and out of the site.
Okay. All right. That's it, right, Brian? Okay. We good, Greg?
Thank you, and I'll be,
Yep, okay.
well, we'll be getting more information. I mean, thank you, Brian, and I'll be waiting to see the environmental review. Thank you.
Nice work, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
I just have a question as to the truck traffic. So the 2 30,000-gallon tanks, that's going to be, private? You'll be having the larger trucks that will come in? It's not gonna be open to the public, correct?
Correct. And the larger truck that's going to fill those stations will only come once a week during the summer and 2 to 3 times a week throughout the winter.
That's to fill the tanks. But
To
I'm
fill the
talking,
tanks.
but I'm talking about the trucks that are going to the site to get the propane from the site to private distribution. So
Yes, the-
how big are those trucks?
They're on the smaller side. I don't, let me get the number for you. They're your typical residential propane trucks that come and fill your house. I don't have the exact number.
So they're, how many gallons is each truck?
Let me get it for you right now. I have it right here. About, hold on, pull it out. About, I think is George on, the applicant? He's on, so he can probably answer that question better.
Do we have him, Chip? No, we do not have him in the waiting room, so we can't.
Oh, you
bring him
didn't have
up.
George on?
No, he's not in the waiting room.
Give me 1 second, I'm pulling it up. All right, perfect, there you go. About 3,500 to 5,500 per truck.
Okay, so, and you're saying there's only gonna be 2 trucks a day, so you're only gonna be you have 2 30,000-gallon tanks, but you're only gonna be filling 2 trucks a day that are gonna be going out to the public?
Yes, they're gonna be, from what I was told by the applicant, is that they only need to fill the 2 trucks at nighttime, and then they go out in the morning the following day to do the deliveries. He does not anticipate, I mean, at this time, he does not anticipate based upon their storage hours and, their flow of work, but I mean, if they do increase, that's where they're at right now with their business.
Well, that's why I think we need to do an analysis as to actually how big the storage tanks are and how much, is coming out of those tanks. Cause anybody can estimate 2 trucks a day, but if you have 2 30,000, that's 60,000-gallon tanks, and you're only, getting rid of 7,000 gallons a day, and you're having the tanks filled up twice a week, the numbers don't make sense to me.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I'll get a better number for you. What I was told is that in the summertime, they only need, so if you assume 10,000 gallons per day, and the truck fills once a week, that's 60,000 gallons, but in the wintertime, I would anticipate probably more routes. So I'll give you a definitive answer on that.
Wouldn't that be included in the environmental review?
Well, I mean, Brian did, touch on it in his report.
Because you're doing a full environmental review on this, correct?
Greg Bergman with the Town Riverhead Planning Department. As Brian stated in his report, we would be looking for details as to the types of trucks, whether they're going to be fixed axle trucks, the size of the trucks. They need to demonstrate that they're going to be able to safely navigate the site. I would recommend that should be provided by the applicant in a narrative. I mean, if the town board would like to see some of the applicant, now we don't have Mr. Yakubowski, the business owner, present at the meeting, but if the board would like to see some records of his, business dealings, just to get a feel for how much propane would be coming in and out of the facility, I think that would be relevant to the application. Councilwoman Kent, as far as SECRA will be done on the application. Initially, one of the significant concerns that Brian did touch upon, and was detailed by the fire marshal's comments, are provisions for fire protection service. Being that the site is not located within the water district, there are no water mains really anywhere near this property. I did scale it out on GIS. I think the closest water main is probably about 1,200, the closest fire hydrant, I think, was about 1,200 feet to the south, which is across Middle Country Road and River Road, which would not really be feasible to, fight a fire should there be an emergency situation at the site. Emergency provisions is one of the criteria for the special permit, so that is one of the significant aspects that the applicant will have to address in their review. Now, I mean, if that can be handled with cisterns buried in the ground or some way to provide water in the event of a fire emergency, that's something that the board needs to be informed on, and that'll need to be factored into their decision if they decide to grant a special permit.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause they may-
Who will be doing the secret review on this?
The planning department is going to be doing the secret review.
I just didn't know you're, Brian doing it, you're doing it?
Yeah, the planning department will collaborate on a secret review. I mean, initially, the most significant concern for this project would be fire suppression. I mean, the particular site in town, it's sort of in no man's land right now. It's very difficult to get to. The only way you're going, the only traffic that's utilizing that portion of town really would be the 7 residences that are there and the Suffolk Cement Incorporated. So, I mean, it is kind of tucked away in a very remote corner of town, but in terms of significant environmental concerns, I don't really think there are any. We're talking about a propane storage and distribution facility. There's generally no concerns that would really, lead to groundwater contamination as a result of the proposed use, and pending input on their traffic estimates. I mean, unless the board has any significant environmental concerns regarding this project, I would welcome that input from the board. But in terms of secret-related impacts, the impacts that we're dealing with, aside from the special permit, are really fire suppression and fire service issues.
Well, I mean, it is propane we're dealing with, so I will forward, comments or concerns on this, but you'll be doing an environmental, review of it, and we will also be, I assume we will be getting comments from these other agencies.
Once we will initiate the secret coordination review. Now, Jeff did point out, it is not currently in the agenda packet right now. I am remiss that I did not speak with Brian to put it in. But if the board's amenable, I would just like to write up a resolution for the board to take at the next meeting on, I believe, Wednesday, just classifying the action and authorizing the coordination to start. If the board's amenable, we could write that up today, put it in Minitrack just to coordinate the secret review.
I can further advise, on that later in the day, Greg.
All right, thank you.
I have a chance to speak with the supervisor about that.
Thank you.
So, this looks like a heavily wooded lot, besides that metal shed that's on the property. Is there going to be screening, recommendations by the planning board for screening? Because that's what I would want as a condition of the, approval, if the planning department felt that it was necessary, is that the trees remain on the frontage?
That will be one of the things that's brought up, as Brian did point out. There are certain screening requirements within the town code when a commercial or industrial use abuts a residential property. He did speak on it. The nature of the use on that property directly to the north, while there is a residential use on the property, as you can see in the aerials, it's essentially I believe it's a paving contractor's yard. So it's not, I don't think it's an accurate representation to call it a residential use. For all intents and purposes, when we did a site visit, when Brian first started, for all intents and purposes, you really can't see that residence from the proposed location of the tanks. But just to be safe and cover our bases, we did include that in the zoning board denial. So really, we're gonna let the zoning board grant that determination if it's appropriate.
Yeah, and we hope to keep all the wooded areas to remain in the perimeter of the property too. So our intent is that we will keep the majority of trees around the facility. The only issue is we have to do some grading onto the site, which will remove some of the trees within the property, but the perimeter of the property will remain wooded.
Okay, and then I was a little confused on the denial letter from the zoning board, because it says to allow the applicant to apply to the zoning board of appeals regarding these requirements due to the mixed-use nature of the adjoining lot. Does this particular lot need any variances with regard to the application for the propane storage and for the 1,056 square foot building?
I mean, it needs front yard, side yard setbacks. One of the denial criteria that we spoke about is the non-disturbed transitional side yard, which they're proposing is 10 feet. That's that residential buffer that is required at 25 feet. And
So-
I'm sorry.
So, where is the building proposed? Is it proposed closer towards the road, or is it proposed for in the back?
In the back. If you look at figure 3 in my report, I don't know if you have it in front of you right now, but it's, the storage tanks are proposed near the rear of the lot.
I wanna speak about the building for a second. The building proposed 25 feet from the front property line, and 16 feet from the side property line to the south. The reason why the building's located all the way up front, I don't know, do you guys have the site plan in front?
No.
Oh, okay. Can I share would you be able to see my screen if I shared, or?
It's
Yes,
the denial letter
you
from
can
the
share
building
that
department.
screen out.
Tell them to go to ZBA because there's setbacks. So, they're proposing a 25-foot setback from Middle Road for the building, and 16-foot side yard. What is the requirement in industrial A?
Take a look here.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So yeah, the building's placed at the front of the property. The reason being is that the health department requires any sanitary system to be 100 feet away from the existing water well. The water well at this time is located at the center of the property, which poses an issue because in order to fit propane filling stations in, the fire code requires you to have 50 feet from the property line, the existing property line. And being that we have an oddly shaped property, in order to fit the propane tanks in this area, we would have to move the building to the front in order to accommodate not only the fire code, but the health department code. And the only reason why we are actually proposing a building is because initially, we were looking to put in a temporary trailer due to the low volume of employees that will be on site per day. But the town of Riverhead Code forbids temporary trailers. So therefore, we are installing a office trailer with a foundation and a sanitary system. And so we kind of got fixed within that corner due to both the fire code and the health department code.
Yeah, I just don't understand why you couldn't put the building back and put the sanitary system in the front yard and still maintain the 150 feet.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, what was that?
I just don't understand why you couldn't push the building back further and put the sanitary system in the front yard to maintain the 150 feet from the well.
So you would prefer to see the building closer to where those parking stalls are?
Yeah, and put the parking on the other side.
Well.
So that you would be able to maintain more of a wooded buffer in the front of the lot on Middle Road.
I could look to see if we can move the building. The only issue with this site is that groundwater is about 13 feet below grade. So we have issues as far as high groundwater. So
Yeah,
I
I
could,
mean, If the building is, you know, like you said, where you were proposing a construction trailer or a Casone trailer there instead of the building, and then the town is saying that's not a permitted use in the town. But what I'm saying is, I'd rather not see that building from the road,
okay.
and I'd rather see it moved back away from the road and more of a wooded buffer on Middle Road.
Okay, yeah, I can explore to see if I can move it back and make it work.
Cause then the sanitary system could go in the front yard underneath the parking.
Okay.
And seeing as you don't need 7 spots, you only need 4, you could probably cut that parking down and put it, perpendicular to the building.
Yeah, I could explore that option. I can take a look. I don't think the property owner would object to that.
I just think it would, then you wouldn't see the building from the road and you'd see the woods and the, you know, the parking would be minimal. from
Yeah,
the,
I mean,
from the.
we are also proposing new plantings up front to screen the building, for anything that we do, remove. But I could definitely explore, pushing the building back.
Yeah, 'cause there is beautiful natural vegetation there as far as the tree line, so.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
And then, okay,
Good job, Brian.
and then, yeah, the residential structure's all the way on the other side, it's such an odd shaped lot. Isn't the adjoining lot, wasn't that part of a subdivision a few years ago? They were proposing a subdivision and there were many violations on that property, if I'm not mistaken, do those violations still exist?
I'm not aware of, any proposed subdivision on that particular lot, but, I'm sure, my colleague Greg might,
Our code enforcement might have cleaned it up.
I
but-
believe there was a subdivision, Anthony, I don't know the last name, but there was a subdivision. I do note that the parcel to the north, the closest structure to this site on that northern parcel did receive a building permit. I don't have the exact dates of that, but yeah, I mean, that's, the site to the north never really underwent a thorough, an actual site plan review. It was issued a building permit as an accessory structure. But yeah, there was a subdivision. I don't have the records readily available. I mean, if you'd like more information on that, we can go through the records and provide that for you.
And these two parcels are in separate ownership, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you. And you'll get feedback on the secret coordination resolution, we can put that on?
I will do that. We'll get back to you on that, Greg.
And that was our last.
That was our last discussion
I
item.
just wanted to, if I could, I just wanted to backtrack a minute to the CMA because I left something out that I wanted to mention from my notes. I do think the public knows, but I wanna mention that one of the concerns with the CMA mining is that it is adjacent to a landfill. That's the whole concern with the groundwater. Also, to my knowledge, from what I've been told, it's actually, the property that it's on was part of our landfill at one time, some years back. So I just wanted to mention that, along with why that's one of the main reasons that this project is such a concern in our town, at the location.
Also, with all the surrounding farms and the water that it pulls from underneath the ground that is currently serving the farms. So the deeper they go, the more water is gonna pool into this area, and it's going to deprive the local farmers, I think, of irrigation needs.
Well, I think this application is a concern to everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I can't even believe that we can't be the lead agency on it.
Yep, yeah.
It amazes me that the DEC just kind of waves their hands and
Yeah.
lets us go through, and other things they spend so much time on. It was amazing how fast this came about.
Right, like FCAL.
Yeah.
That's of course why it was
But
raised.
that's- but we'll be
Put it on the
discussing
My
in
point.
executive
Exact-
session today.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be protecting our resources, and for us, I mean, it's certainly a concern about contamination of our water when it's adjacent to a landfill, and actually, if I'm correct, and I wanna check with Ken Testa, who was the town engineer at that time, I believe that the property actually was a landfill, was part of the landfill at some point.
Well,
Actually,
on that issue,
Actually,
we encroached
dumped.
onto the
We
property.
Right, I know that, but there's things buried there in such, I believe.
If I
Which is
could.
why it cost us so much
I
money
think
in
we
order
could-
to,
Yeah, I think
remediate the
we should
landfill.
speak to Ken Testa about that, but I think what happened was, as you point out, the property lines were the property lines. I don't think there was ever a change in the property lines, so.
no, we were dumping on
Well,
the.
We
well,
were
what happened
approaching
was
100 feet over, I'm told.
We went over onto the property as part of our
Right.
cover.
If I
Our
could-
cover that was put on.
If I could,
the
as Bob,
landfill.
stated earlier, there are numerous things that need to be discussed about this application, both publicly and in executive session, and I put forward the question earlier, if we could go into executive session today, that would be, highly recommended due to the fact that the clock is ticking, and there's a number of things that both Bob and I would like to share with you, but again, that's executive session material, so.
Understood. Okay, so we're gonna move on to resolutions. That wraps up discussion items, so we'll jump to resolutions. Do you want hard copies? I have a set.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, resolution number 1 accepts retirement of a public safety dispatcher. Resolution number 2 authorizes town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for food and meat products. Resolution number 3, authorizes the town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for bid for general hardware items. Number 4, economic development budget transfer. Number 5, extends bid for charter coach transportation. No.
Just a question.
Yes.
Just a question on there.
Mhm.
Are we extending this because we weren't able, do you know if we were extending this because we weren't able to have our planned trips that we usually have for the rec department? So we're extending this contract another 2 years?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that this would be occurring whether you were having those trips or not. But
Okay.
This
That's
would
what I
be extended,
wondered.
and then in the event a trip can occur, then you have this in place, should we need it.
Okay.
That's my understanding. Is that right, Cos?
I'm sorry, I was looking at something else that came across the computer.
For the Hampton
On
Jitney.
another,
The
on-
jitney,
The jitney
extending,
Grasshopper?
we're extending we're extending that contract 2 years. I was wondering if that's because they weren't able to take the trips that we normally take because of COVID, but Devin says
I
he thinks
think-
it's a normal.
I think it's just part of the, request
Okay.
under the agreement to see if we can extend it. I mean, of course, they haven't been able to be utilized, but I don't think that's necessarily the reason why they're asking the board to extend it.
This way, if they can do a trip, they have this in place. Okay, number 6, CDBG budget modification.
And I did clarify this with Dawn. She had sent us an email quite a while ago, but, I believe this was money that was originally pegged for the Council of Unity, but they were not able to, move forward with that, so we were able to use the money in another area, so it's being used for signs downtown.
That's correct, and this is one of
For
two.
this year.
This is one of 2 resos touching on that same topic,
Right.
that you'll see today. Number 7, accepts the resignation of an automotive equipment operator. Number 8, accepts the resignation of an assessment clerk.
Yeah, I didn't know that she was leaving. I'm sorry to see that.
Number 9, appoints an automotive equipment operator to the sanitation division of the town engineers department. Number 10, appoints a maintenance mechanic 2 to the Riverhead Water District. Number 11, amends resolution number 2020-547, ratifying the appointment of a temporary part-time public safety dispatcher. Number 12, grants excavation and exportation permit pursuant to Chapter 229 of the Riverhead Town Code for the application known as 331 East Main Street LLC, 331 East Main Street, Riverhead, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-129-4-15.
So on the fiscal impact statement, it says that it will not have a fiscal impact, but it will, because it'll obviously be money coming into the fund, so that needs to be corrected.
That's correct, okay. Make a note of that.
So, it's interesting, so, okay. I guess they looked at the engineering report as to what was being taken out.
550 yards, right?
Mhm. So,
Yep. Okay. Number 13, awards bid for well and pump service for Riverhead Water District. Number 14, amends an order for minibuses for the senior department. Number 15, ratifies approved open space committee update for preservation of parcels with funding via Suffolk County Old Drinking Water Protection Program.
So I know we had the list before, but I just wondered if the list should be attached to this.
it should.
I didn't see the list on there.
There was a couple of minor changes, but, it was just in the ranking, if I recall, but it should be in here, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I
Or
just think it
emailed
would
us.
be, I
Yeah.
think it would be good for the public to see it, and I know this is, not really anything to do with this, but a few people have talked to me about how much it would have been nice if we could preserve Polonaise Park. It's very sad that that property is, up for sale.
Actually, I
That's
think
just
it's
such a
been sold.
that's such a great park for the town, and especially with COVID, it's a nice place for meetings outside.
I think it's been sold.
Has it? Yeah,
I was
it's
told,
a shame.
yeah.
I just think it would have been nice.
But I think
Anyway.
it's important to have the list attached, because I remember, I think the last time we had a list drafted was like in the late 80s or early 90s, something to that effect, and then we had worked on a new list, but it's never really been published or public record,
We can add
so
it
I
to
think
it,
it's
yeah.
important to have the list attached also.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, number 16, authorizes notice to bidders, process control system maintenance and emergency services, Riverhead Water District project number RDWD 2003 PCS. Number 17, authorizes notice to bidders, mechanical maintenance and emergency services, Riverhead Water District project number RDWD 2003M. Number 18, authorizes notice to bidders, hydraulic control valve maintenance and emergency services, Riverhead Water District, project number RDWD 2003 HCV. And number 19, authorizes notice to bidders, electrical system maintenance and emergency services, Riverhead Water District, project number RDWD 2003E.
Mighty needy there, Mr. Mancini.
That's right. Number 20, authorizes the supervisor to execute a fifth addendum nunc-pro-tunc to professional services agreement for placement of commemorative items at Grumman Memorial Park.
Yeah, I thought this was kinda cool, I didn't know about this, so I looked to this resolution over, that Pat Van de Wettering adds items to Grumman Memorial Park. Anybody want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, she's been doing it for about 20 years. They buy the bricks, and then she puts the bricks out onto, the surface, so.
And in the resolution, it says benches, plaques.
Yeah, she takes care of everything up there. She's done a fantastic
I
job
know,
over
I
the
have.
years.
And she very graciously does it without being paid for her
Exactly.
services. The only cost to the town is the de minimis cost for the materials and things, that she needs along the way. But-
Right, and that's why I didn't want this to just go by. I think it's a really cool thing, and just wanted to confirm, because it looked like she does something really great for the town, so, thank you to Pat.
Okay. Number 21, authorizes notice to bidders, water distribution system maintenance and emergency services, Riverhead Water District, project number RDWD 2003 WD. Number 22, authorizes shotgun hunting for deer on town property at Enterprise Park at Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-135-1-7.33 et al. And 1751 Sound Avenue, Calverton, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-60-1-2 from January 3rd, 21 to January 31, 21, sunrise to sunset. Number 23, approves transfer of funds for the Suffolk County fiscal year 2019 Community Development Block Grant Funds.
I just wondered which are the two lines, this is a transfer from which line to which line?
Yeah, it should be attached, because we attached the adopted budget, so.
I just would like that attached so we can see the two lines.
Okay, we'll make a note of that, and we'll see if accounting can take care of that. Okay, number 24, number 25. Riverview Lofts, 221 East Main Street, project number 60184, budget adjustment.
It looked like this is because they went over the amount, I just wondered why? Anyone have information on this?
It's for water, so.
Right, Frank, do you know anything about this? The Riverview Lofts? Can you come to the mic?
We've had a number of change orders with that project, mostly involved in the running of the pipe we made them put in the back of the facility and up through McDermott. Initially, there were some things with water, dewatering and water quality, and restoration costs, things like that.
That's why they went over that's why the amount was higher?
Yeah, and it does not cost to us, this goes to the developer.
I know that.
So we just get we approve we gotta get their change orders approved. There's a couple of other ones, I'd have to look more deeply into it if you wanna really
Well,
get
if you
down
could
to
just
it.
let me know.
Okay.
I was just curious why they went over the amount, thank you.
Are they connected now?
Oh, they're physically connected to the public water system, but the service is not on. Up until August, they had a 1-inch service that we were billing them to for usage of during the development of that project.
Right.
But we cut that as part of the work here, that generated some of those change orders. So right now, they have no water on site.
Okay, and Jefferson, if I could just ask you a question about this one, because I know that there were, stress cracks in the walls and the church and everything across the street. And as they near getting a certificate of occupancy for the building, I'm wondering what arrangements they are making to fix the road on McDermott Avenue, number one, because that was their staging ground and the road is destroyed, number one. And number two, what plans they have to remedy any of the cracks in Mrs. Dorosky's house and the church across the street.
Performance bond.
Before we turn on the water.
We're holding a $150,000 bond for the reconstruction of the road. So, we were planning on having that repaved this year, however, we learned that, I believe it's, PSEG or, they have to reinstall a new gas main in the road, but they're not gonna be able to get to that till next spring, so we're gonna hold off on the reconstruction of the road until next spring, because there's no point to reconstructing it now and then have to tear it up again next spring. But we do have the $150,000 performance bond, and Bob can confirm that it's still valid.
It is.
Right, but is that the anticipated cost based on the new construction contract?
I did not prepare the construction estimate, I'm not an engineer. I'm assuming that the highway department and the town engineer have reviewed it and found it to be acceptable.
Okay, but
As
I'm just
far
saying
as the road itself?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, it's my understanding from speaking with the deputy superintendent of highways that amount is more than adequate to finish the work after the gas main and other work is done.
I'd like to see something in writing from the highway department that the $150,000 is gonna be adequate enough to cover that work, because I know that the annual construction contract, the costs keep going up. Now with the public works, being
can reach out to
prevailing
Mike
wage
Zaleski.
and everything else, that those costs could be going up, so I just wanna, the
Okay.
cost of sand, the cost of everything, pavement, asphalt. I wanna
can
make
fi-
sure that the $150,000 is enough.
And with regard to the second question, I have not been following that. That was being done by the former chief building inspector and now the current building inspector. I can follow up in a meeting. We actually have a 2 o'clock site inspection meeting today with the developer, David Gallo, and I can follow up with him at that time.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, because I know that we did receive a lot of complaints during construction,
Right.
and the drilling for the piers, so I wanna make sure that,
Everybody's made whole.
yeah,
Okay, I'll follow up with David today, and I'll get back to you with an answer.
thank you.
Okay, number 25, amendment to investment policy. Number 26, authorizes town clerk to publish and post notice to bidders for water service materials. Number 27, authorizes the supervisor to execute professional service agreements with H2M.
I'm just wondering if we know for this, I didn't see it in here, who's going to be responsible for the disposal?
I don't know who, Bob, maybe you know what the standard procedure is on that?
You know, and they're removing, I think this was to remove asbestos and such. Who's going to be responsible for the disposal?
The environmental consultant is how it normally works. You get an asbestos certification, they determine where the asbestos is, they put it in sealed containers, and then they take it to a disposal facility.
But I don't think we've
just-
gotten to the point that we've concluded that there is asbestos.
If there
Yeah,
is.
I think
Have they?
once they determine there's asbestos, and this is beyond my, probably my understanding, but, and if there's, I mean, I don't see the building inspector here, but once there's a determination there's asbestos in the building and it's present, an asbestos remediation company is hired, they do the work, they issue a certification, they provide it to us.
Okay, I just didn't see anything in the information attached.
Well, it wouldn't be in there, that's SOP, standard practice, that if there's a structure that has asbestos in it, any renovation work, any work that's gotta be done, we will obviously, require as part of the reconstruction, as part of the work, that they provide us with a certificate showing that it's been addressed.
So, I mean,
But again, that's something that maybe Andreas or the building department can better explain. Because this is something that they do on a regular basis. It's not something that my office would
no,
say.
it's in H2M's proposal for the asbestos bulk sample, and it looks like all the costs for the analytical costs equate to $4,000. So I'm just curious as to why this contract is for $300,000, it appears?
I think we need Dawn in here. Frank, would you mind grabbing Dawn
Oh.
for us? Thank you.
'Cause I mean, there's environmental contractors that you can call in and say, see if there's any asbestos or lead paint, and it costs $5,000. I'm just wondering why this is going through H2M and why it's $300,000 when the analytical costs equate to about 20.
Caitlin, do you wanna touch on the budget side of it while we're waiting for Don?
Good afternoon.
Hi, Caitlin.
We were working with this, yesterday, so this is just accepting part of a grant from New York State.
Oh, okay, that's all right. Caitlin seems to know, have some information.
This is a piece of an $800,000 grant from New York State, so, the piece that's specifically outlined is $300,000 for professional services, so that's what we're recognizing at this time.
Frank, how about Anne Marie, maybe you could grab her, cause I know she was working with Don on this. Thanks, Frank.
Do we wanna come back to it?
Yeah, we'll do that.
So 300,000 is the total cost that we're taking in from the state aid, but H2M is not going to be getting all that money.
No, it's professional services in total, as outlined by the grant, paperwork.
Okay, maybe we'll come back to it,
Sure.
just so we can.
When she gets, we don't wanna make her run.
Okay, number 28, approves All Island Excavating Corp. As drain layer for Riverhead Sewer District. Number 29, approves and authorizes the supervisor to execute third addendum to extend agreement nunc-pro-tunc with Mark Conklin to provide consulting services to the Riverhead Water District. Number 30, ratifies the appointment of a recreation specialist to the Recreation Department.
What, yeah, I didn't see what is this, are we adding someone here?
Yes. I think it was Jeff Dorosky.
Right, flag football coach, through the end of December, I guess, flag
Oh, so
football
this
season,
is just
so.
this is just a temporary
Yeah.
Right.
thing. Okay, just
For
'cause
the program, right.
we're watching our money, that's why I
Yeah.
just
No,
wanted to
better
clarify
than
that.
Coach D.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, all right, thank you, thanks, Tim.
Okay, since Anne Marie's here, maybe we'll go back. Thanks for coming. So, we have a resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute professional service agreements with H2M. This was, I guess, in addition to the phase 1, correct?
Well, it's a more detailed phase one, because if the town board will recall, in our resolution, subject to a permissive referendum, outlining the details of the purchase, the town would only be responsible for remediation of hazardous material up to $50,000. In order to, quote, prepare the report and do the necessary evaluation to assure the CDA director and myself as to those costs, we require the additional information. The costs of that are coming through the CDA grant, which is $800,000 and permits the expenditure of funds for administrative costs related to the purchase of the property.
I just don't, I guess, I don't know. I'm looking at, you know, the analytical costs of $5,000 and a fee to H2M of $11,000, and I'm just wondering why we don't just go direct to the people that H2M is going to and have them do the samples for us rather than having H2M oversee it.
Probably because we were already engaged in a contract with them, and quite honestly, you know, we're gonna hold them responsible for the costs, you know, if the costs actually aren't accurate.
Yeah, it's
going to
like
be-
double the cost with just them overseeing it, that's all.
And who's gonna be responsible for the disposal?
Well,
The environmental company that H2M hires.
well, when we talk about pursuant to the contract, the $50,000, we stated in the permissive referendum, and the town board, you know, obviously discussed it several times. Two of the buildings, 117 and 121, are scheduled to be demolished. The importance of ascertaining these quote costs are, if the demolition of 117 or 121 If those costs increase by more than $50,000 due to required remediation of hazardous materials, the town will only be liable for the $50,000, and the seller will be responsible for everything over and above. That's why, you know, frankly, Dawn and I want to make certain we take a hard look at it, because, you know, we're in the negotiation process with the seller, and, you know, we want to present a concrete report to them. As the councilwoman's question, you know, I have to admit, Dawn negotiated the H2M, but I'm confident in her ability as serving as a town attorney for nearly a decade.
Yeah, but I mean, we have Eastern Environmental that's right here in Calverton that could come out and do these samplings. I mean, H2M is not gonna do the samples and the testing, so, and the cost is double to have them oversee it. I just don't know why we wouldn't just go direct to the testing company and save half the cost.
Well, you know, I can represent to you, I'll take a look at it and see if it is in fact double the cost, and I'll speak to Dawn, you know, but I'm pretty confident she took a hard look in making that determination. But I'll do that and I'll report to the board via email, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Welcome back.
We're still here.
I know.
We might be by dinner time too.
No, we're almost done.
We had a bomb threat to St. Isidore, but
Oh,
all
no.
the kids are home, they check,
You
clothes
should probably
check.
say that in the mic.
No, you don't say that, you
Okay.
never alarm the people that there's a bomb scare, that's what the people wanna say. So you
Well, you're on the
never-
air, so
Yeah.
they
you
know.
never say that on the
I
air.
know, but that's why I was,
No.
I know, but they can hear you now anyway, so.
Oh, no, here I can tell the people.
It's
what I'm
already
saying.
on.
You don't tell the public there's a bomb scare and on a TV, that's what they want. Disrupt government, disrupt the schools, that's a standard, and leave that to police work, well, we got that, Catherine. We got it,
I was just-
we know the science on it.
I was just finishing up reading the resolutions, we have just two left to cover. So the last two,
Oh, we're on the air?
yeah,
Oh,
we're just,
good.
what I was trying to say.
It's okay. Oh, okay, I thought you were saying, it's okay,
No.
all safe, the kids are home, and school is commencing tomorrow.
What you were saying is that everything was taken care of.
Yep,
So
everything
people should
was-
be rest assured, that's what I was
Yep,
trying to get you
and we have a
to
great
say in the
police,
mic.
and you know what, the police are very well trained in dealing with this, so.
okay,
Okay, good, let's move forward.
right, so I just have two more resolutions to read off, and then I'll,
I
kinda
thought
have
you
your
were in
packets screwed
executive
up.
session.
We're not yet, no,
What's the name told me you were in executive session, so.
no, we're not yet.
Okay, great.
Okay, so, number 31, Water District Plant 10 Storage Tank Rehabilitation Budget Adoption. And number 32,
So you wanna finish?
Planning Department Budget Adjustment. And that,
No, there's two more,
more.
Oh, I'm
33
sorry.
and 34.
sorry, I just lost
That's
my
all right.
place. Bear with me, okay. Number 33, classify special permit and site plan application for proposed drive-in restaurant and retail site as a type 1 action pursuant to SECRA and initiates coordinated SECRA review among involved agencies north side of Old Country Road, 230 feet west of Osborne Avenue, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-108-2-6.1.
It's just trying to figure out, is this in that, Jeff, is this in that new shopping area across from Apple Honda?
This is
That-
Sonic.
No, this is Sonic right
Oh,
behind the
this
gas
is the
station on
Sonic.
the corner.
Okay, I should have figured
And
it out by
alongside
the
of it.
description.
Yeah.
Just to the west of the
Okay.
highway department.
Right, yeah, that's what I thought, but I didn't know it was the Sonic, okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
Tim wants that done before, the spring holiday.
Is that true, Tim?
No.
I didn't think so. Tim does his own cooking.
But he doesn't share.
That's right.
Each cooks for
Is that it,
himself.
or one more time?
One more.
One more.
34. Right here. Read it.
Authorize the town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing to consider a proposed local law for an amendment of chapter 301 entitled Zoning and Land Development of the Riverhead Town Code, Railroad Avenue Urban Renewal Overlay District.
So this is the TOD.
Correct.
It's the public hearing, right?
That's correct.
Correct. Okay, so we have to close and go into exec. Do you wanna do that, or you want me to finish it? Okay. All right, so, in a moment, we'll ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the following. Matters surrounding a legal claim made by Travelers Insurance, Hager Miller and Kozakevich, and contractual discussion surrounding retention of outside legal counsel, Kozakevich and Mancini. Can I have a motion to enter
We're
into
gonna
executive?
add one too, I believe.
Right.
The
That's-
CMA discussion?
That's up to the supervisor if she wants to add that.
When did that come about?
So that's what I
During discussion on the resolutions, there's matters that require executive session. So we asked if we could have that put on, added on.
Jefferson and
Because
Bob.
normally we don't add, but under the
Right.
circumstances.
It's time sensitive.
Yeah, if it's time sensitive,
Right.
normally we don't add, we need the public to know,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Right, so we'll amend the agenda. We'll
and
repost
the-
that.
And who's gonna be on that, Jeff and,
And Bob.
And Bob.
Costas?
Right,
Okay.
so we'll take care of that.
And so somebody should reach out when we go to the police chief, let him know we're going into executive session?
Yep, we'll do
Jeff,
that.
can somebody call him? Cos? Can you call the police chief, tell him we're going into executive session on his item?
Okay,
Perfect, CMAC and with them.
so we need a motion,
Your mask, Bob.
we need a motion to enter into exec?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, all opposed?
Aye.
Aye.